Welcome back to Driftwood Stories, where the waves know your name and the night carries the warmth of old wonder. Tonight we drift with the tide to the edge of the world where sky and sea first touched, and something beautiful rose from their embrace. This is the story of Aphrodite, goddess of love, of beauty, of desire and devotion, but not as you may have heard her, not loud, not adorned. This is not the story of envy or chaos. It is the story of a goddess becoming, not to be worshipped, but to be understood. So breathe softly now. Let the sea wrap around your thoughts, and listen to the moment when love itself first opened its eyes. Chapter 1. Foam and Sky. Before the gods built thrones from cloud, before Olympus echoed with pride and prophecy, there was the sea, endless, wordless, waiting. The sky arched above it, quiet and wide, and between them, where salt met starlight, a single breath curled into being. From it the foam gathered. White and glimmering, it spun in spirals, coiling with ancient magic. Not the fire of war, not the stone of fate, something softer, something sacred. And from that foam she rose. Aphrodite, not born of womb or forge, but of longing. The longing for connection, for beauty not yet named, for the soft place in every soul that yearns to be seen. Her body shimmered with sea glow. Her hair fell like dusk across her shoulders. Her eyes, wide, ancient, new, opened to the sky, and she breathed in a world that had not yet spoken her name. The wind stirred. The waves danced around her in silent celebration. She did not speak. She did not need to. The sea knew her. It cradled her in waves like lullabies, lifting her gently toward the shore. And all around her the world responded. Shells opened to spill pearls. Dolphins leapt in still waters. Even the stars paused in their turning. She was not flame, not thunder. She was invitation. She was love before it was written, beauty before it was measured, the ache and balm, the question and the answer. As the foam faded and her feet touched the waves, she looked toward land, not with hunger or fear, but with something deeper. Curiosity. The gods had not shaped her. She had shaped herself in the space where sky meets sea, where silence gives birth to song. And now she would step ashore and learn what it meant to be seen. Chapter 2. The first step on sand. The shore greeted her like breath-meeting skin, warm, still, unsure. Aphrodite stood where the tide met the land, her feet sinking slightly into the wet sand. Her sea glow dimmed now to a gentle shimmer. Behind her, the ocean hummed like memory. Ahead, the world waited. She did not rush. She watched first, the way the wind curled around olive trees, the way the sun slipped over the hills. She watched birds dart low across the waves and small crabs burrow into silence. And then, with one slow, steady step, she walked onto land. The earth, unused to feet that moved like waves, held its breath. Far off, a shepherd dropped his staff. On a cliffside, a girl sketching stars gasped, not in fear, but recognition. The gods felt it too. In Olympus, whispers stirred. Something new has arrived, something beautiful, something dangerous. Aphrodite heard none of this. She walked the beach quietly, one hand trailing through the air as if painting with salt. She did not smile to be seen. She did not pose. She simply was. And that was enough. A fisherman nearby saw her and fell to his knees. "A goddess," he whispered. A woman gathering driftwood looked up and felt tears rise to her eyes. "I don't know why," she said aloud, "but I feel known." Words spread like wind. Soon the mortals brought flowers, offerings, songs sung off-key with trembling voices. But what struck Aphrodite most was not their praise. It was the way their eyes changed when they looked at her. Some widened in awe, some clouded with longing, some narrowed with want, and some, a few, held something deeper, fear, not of her power, but of what she made them feel. She had not asked for this. She had not asked for temples or titles, for worship or worry. She had stepped ashore to feel grass, to learn the names of birds, to see what the world made of itself when no one was looking. But already she saw it. They did not see her for what she was. They saw her for what they needed her to be. She sat beside a driftwood log that evening, alone, watching the sky fade from gold to dusk. The ocean reached for her ankles. She whispered, "Is this love? To be adored, but not known?" The sea said nothing, only cradled her breath in its tide, and the stars, shy and silver, blinked slowly above her. Chapter 3. The Mirror and the Name. The summons came on the third morning, a soft shimmer in the air like sunlight on water, a ripple in the wind. "The gods wish to see you." Aphrodite did not rush to meet them. She took her time, washing in a freshwater spring, threading shells into her hair, speaking softly to the herons that watched from the reeds. She moved as she always had, without haste, but with purpose. When she stepped onto the marble steps of Olympus, silence fell. The gods had gathered, brilliant, eternal, glowing with their own legend. They watched her with equal parts wonder, wariness, and calculation. Zeus, thunder-eyed, leaned forward. Hera, all iron and grace, narrowed her gaze. Athena studied. Apollo admired. Hermes grinned, then faltered. Only Hestia met her eyes without weight. The air grew thick with unspoken thoughts. Is she threat? Is she gift? Is she ours? Zeus rose. "You come from the sea," he said, voice low, "but not by our hand. And yet the world bends toward you." Aphrodite said nothing. He gestured to a mirror conjured from mist and metal. "Do you know what you are?" She stepped toward it, barefoot on the marble. In the mirror she saw herself, but not as she was. The glass reflected her beauty, yes, but it twisted it, smoothed her edges, brightened her eyes, painted a version of her shaped by longing not her own. A dream, not a truth. She looked away. "That is not me," she said softly. Hera stepped forward. "Then who are you?" Aphrodite turned to her. "I am the ache before the poem, the warmth behind the breath, the moment before the kiss, and the silence that comes after." The gods fell quiet. It was not the answer they expected, but it was the only one that fit. Hermes spoke, trying to catch the air again. "And your name?" She touched the shell at her throat. Smooth, simple. I choose it now. Let it be known. Aphrodite, she said. The foam-born, not because I am fragile, but because I rise. She turned from the mirror and left it behind. It cracked softly, and no one tried to stop her. She descended Olympus, not with fanfare, but with the breeze. The gods watched her go, uncertain, unsettled. They had met countless powers, but never one who did not need to be seen, only felt. Chapter 4, The Mortal Who Looked Away. Far from Olympus, in a city of dust and olive trees, there lived a sculptor. He had no patrons, no gold, only clay-stained fingers and a heart shaped by silence. His name was Dion, and he did not speak often. He worked in the mornings when the sun was low and the birds still owned the sky. He shaped stone not into gods or kings, but into hands, reaching, holding, resting. He carved quiet things, unnoticed things, things that felt like waiting. One evening, Aphrodite came to the city. She wore no crown, no gown of stars, only a robe the colour of sea glass and a braid tied with a shell. The market stirred. Men dropped baskets, women stared. The crowd bent toward her like wildflowers toward sun. But Dion, he kept carving. He glanced up, only briefly. His eyes met hers and moved on. Not cold, not unkind, just unmoved. Aphrodite felt it like a ripple through her skin. She had been adored, feared, longed for. But this was new. She stayed. She did not speak to him, not at first. She returned each day, lingering near the edges of the square, watching him shape beauty from stone without need for praise. One afternoon she approached. "Why do you not look at me?" she asked, voice soft. He paused. "I do," he said, "just not the way others do." She tilted her head. "And how is that?" He wiped his hands on a cloth, slow and thoughtful. "They see a flame. I see a question. Everyone wants you. I wonder what you want." Aphrodite sat beside him. No spell, no shimmer, just presence. "I don't know," she whispered. "Then you are not alone," Dion said. "Neither do I." And they sat in the sun, the scent of clay and myrtle drifting between them. He did not ask for her love. He did not fear her power. He only offered space, and in that space something bloomed, not passion, not possession, peace. She returned for many days. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes not, but always he carved. And slowly Aphrodite saw herself not in mirrors or marble, but in the quiet way he smoothed the stone, in the pause before each chisel fell, in the shape of a hand that held nothing and still meant everything. When she left at last, she touched his shoulder. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing me." By not staring, he smiled, small, real. "Come back," she did not promise, but she carried his stillness with her, like a stone warmed by the sun. Chapter 5, The Lovers She Blessed. She did not sit on a throne. She walked through orchards and open fields, through courtyards and kitchens, unnoticed by many, unforgettable to a few. Aphrodite did not bless love with thunder. She blessed it with timing, with a held breath before a first kiss, with the silence between two hands reaching unsure, with the moment when the heart said yes, even if the mouth hadn't caught up yet. In one village she passed a woman who sat weaving baskets. Her fingers were nimble, her face steady, but her thoughts trembled. Each morning a merchant brought dates and clumsy conversation. Each evening he walked away before asking her name. Aphrodite stopped, unseen. She placed a sprig of myrtle in the next basket. The woman found it hours later, nestled in the reeds. She smiled. The next morning, when the merchant came, she handed him a basket filled not with fruit, but with a simple note. Yes, in another town, two men tended the same olive grove. They argued often, always over small things, where to prune, how to sort the fruit. But their anger was careful. Their words stayed close to the ground, never rising too high. One night, Aphrodite sat beneath their tree. She whispered nothing. She only touched the roots. The next morning, the older man offered a piece of bread. The younger accepted. They shared it without a word. A few fields over, a child sat alone, making crowns from clover. Her mother had left, and her father spoke only in tasks. But Aphrodite sat beside her for a moment, invisible, and let a breeze lift the girl's hair. The father looked up from his work. He saw his daughter laughing with no one, and something inside him cracked. That night he brought her a flower, awkward, late, but real. Aphrodite did not measure love by formality, or ritual, or rings. She measured it by truth, by the way someone's voice softened at a name, by the choice to stay, to try again, to reach when reaching felt impossible. She passed by thousands who called her name with incense and gold, but she listened most to those who loved without knowing she was near, those who offered themselves not for reward, but because they could not help it, because the soul, when it trusts, opens like a flower, slowly, shyly, fully. She touched the petals gently and moved on. Chapter 6. The Storm in the Garden. She had made a garden for herself, not a palace, a garden, tucked between hills, kissed by sea air. Vines hung heavy with bloom, figs softened in the sun, and every path curved gently, like a breath turning in sleep. No statues of her stood there, no fountains carved with her face, only jasmine, olive, and thyme, and quiet. It was the one place she could walk without being watched. Until they found it. Not mortals, gods. They came with compliments woven like thorns. Your beauty could light Olympus, your smile starts wars. What a thing to be made only for love. She smiled politely and said nothing, but the jasmine wilted a little that day. They brought gifts next. Mirrors framed in silver, cloaks that shimmered like starlight. Hermes brought a golden comb, Apollo sang. But Aphrodite looked at her garden, at the soft petals, the still water, and wondered, do they see me, or just what they expect? Even Athena came once, not to flatter, but to measure. You wield influence without strategy, she said. Strange, Aphrodite smiled, and yet it moves you to visit. Athena did not reply. She left with the scent of myrtle on her robes. Then came the stories. Hera, quiet and proud, murmured at court, "She brings love, yes, but love without wisdom invites ruin." Demeter, more kindly, once said, "She walks like a flame, but not every hearth wants fire." And in a moment of sharp wind and wounded pride, even Artemis muttered, "She's never had to bleed for anything." Aphrodite heard it all, not with her ears, with her bones. One evening she returned to her garden and found the fig tree broken. A garland, left as a mock offering, dangled from a snapped branch. Something inside her cracked. She knelt by the tree and touched the wound where bark had split. And for the first time in a long while, she did not feel radiant. She felt tired. She let herself grieve, not for the tree, but for the truth, that to be loved for beauty alone is to be loved like a statue, admired, desired, but never known. The wind rose, the sea grumbled, and still she knelt. She whispered into the earth, "Let me be seen, not just longed for. Let me be held, not claimed. Let me love, not as a gift, but as a being." A soft rain began to fall. It kissed her skin and did not ask her to smile. And slowly the garden breathed again. Not all who worship love understand it, but Aphrodite did, and now she would carry that truth like a ribbon, not tied in her hair, but in her steps. She rose, the storm passed, and she walked on. Chapter 7, The Thread of Gold. In a city of stone and salt wind, a girl sat hunched in a workshop, her fingers stained with dye. She made robes for weddings, not her own. Her hands were swift, her work fine, and yet none looked at her when she passed. Not because she was plain, not because she was forgettable, because she had learned how to disappear. Each day she stitched beauty for others, drapes of red for brides, threads of blue for blessings. She touched silk that would never touch her skin, and she never met their eyes. One day she lingered by the fountain after sunset, watching a couple laugh over olives and spilled wine. They didn't notice her. But someone else did. Aphrodite stood nearby, not in glowing form, not crowned, not shimmering, just a woman in a soft wrap, with sea wind in her hair. She watched the girl, not with pity, with recognition. Later, when the girl returned to her workshop, she found a spool of gold thread resting on her stool. Fine, subtle, warm as dusk, no note. She almost returned it, but something in her hand said, "Keep it." That night she stitched it into a robe, not one she would sell. One she made for herself, not a wedding robe, a robe for walking, for waking. The next morning she wore it to market. No one gasped, no one fell at her feet. But someone looked her way and smiled. She smiled back, and for the first time in years she felt not like a shadow, but a flame, small, steady, her own. Aphrodite watched from the rooftops. No applause, no altar, just a woman in gold, shoulders back, spine unbent. That was enough. The thread was not magic, it was permission. To be seen, to be loved, to love oneself. She gave it often, left in baskets, tied to sandals, woven into hair. Just enough to remind the forgotten that beauty is not something granted. It is recognized, a mirror waiting patiently, and Aphrodite, was simply the one holding it steady. Chapter 8, Love walks beside her. The tide rolled in gently. Soft white foam curled along the sand, just as it had the day she first rose from it. The sun was lower now, golden and slow, casting everything in warmth instead of wonder. Aphrodite walked barefoot, her robe trailing behind her, sea-wet at the hem. Her hair was loosed and her hands were empty, not because she had nothing left to hold, but because she had finally set everything down. She walked the same shore, the one where she had first opened her eyes, where the world had gasped and reached for her. But now she did not wait for the world to tell her who she was. She knew. She had seen the price of longing, the ache of beauty mistaken for invitation, the hunger in eyes that looked through her, not at her. And still she loved, not perfectly, but deeply. She had learned to love without being needed, to give without being emptied, to bless without being seen. And slowly, gently, love had come back to her, not in roses, not in thunder, but in quiet moments, the way a bird circled above her, low and silent, the way a child tucked a seashell into the crook of a statue's elbow, the way the tide reached for her ankles again and again, not demanding, just returning. As she walked, she felt it beside her. Not a god, not a man, not a mirror. Love, not something she gave, not something she received. Just something that walked with her. It took no shape. It asked for nothing. But it was there, a presence warm as breath, steady as tide. She smiled, the first smile that was hers alone, and in the distance the sky deepened to violet. The sea grew still, and the stars began to appear quiet as pearls. Aphrodite did not rise into the heavens. She did not vanish into myth. She simply kept walking, love at her side, and the world, for once, did not rush to worship her. It simply let her be.